What's up everybody, Alex here. Welcome back to another video and welcome to a bit of a jazz video. So over the past, really this year, 2025, I've picked up a lot of new jazz reissues. A lot of old jazz records too, but a lot of new jazz reissues. Now, if you are new to record collecting or maybe new to jazz, it's important to note that in 2025, we are really, truly living in a gold mine of really easy to find, easily accessible, amazing audiophile jazz reissues. So a lot of people know this who are kind of in the know in the vinyl community, as it were. But the reality is that there is really not a better time to really kind of tip your toes into jazz if you're interested in it. I will say, along with it being a gold mine, also means it's a little bit overwhelming because there are so many amazing labels, amazing releases. It seems like everywhere you look, there's a different jazz audiophile sort of reissue campaign going on, which is amazing, and also I think lends itself to people being a little bit overwhelmed, or have decision paralysis, or they don't know where to start, or all that kind of stuff. So, this is, I guess, sort of a vinyl finds video in a sense, but specifically focused on a lot of the jazz reissues that I've picked up over the last, I don't even know at this point, 4, 5, 6 months. So these are not really that recent, but I mean, really over the year 2025 so far. That being said, we have a lot of Blue Note tone poets, some Blue Note classics, some original jazz classics from Kraft. We got some jazz dispensary stuff. We got some Kraft contemporary series stuff. A little bit of everything, and I just look. I kind of struggle, I think, making jazz videos because I don't know really much of anything, and jazz people are really intelligent and really good at what they do, and I am neither of those things. And so, bear with me as I am not an expert. I'm still a novice, but it is a type of music that I've really gotten into a lot, and I find myself gravitating towards more and more as the years go on, as I get older and older. So, this is kind of just a collection of a bunch of jazz reissue stuff that I've picked up over the last however many months, and let's get into it. I guess thumbnail sort of gave this away, but I wanted to show it because there is a bit of a good story with it. But it is Miles Davis, The Prestige Recordings, 1954. This is a 4 LP box set here. Take off the little hat. You got the 4 LPs in there. Cool stuff, along with a really cool book, actually, that kind of walks through everything. So, Miles Davis, I think, needs no introduction. I think everybody kind of knows who Miles Davis is, and especially these kind of years on Prestige. Here's the thing. This is a box set. I believe this retails for somewhere in the, $100 to $120 range. I do not know the audio source. I heard this was maybe digital, but from like a analog transfer. I think it might have been Bernie Grundman. I don't know. But as fate would have it, and I should have said this earlier, a lot of these shamelessly are from Amazon, and I kind of have some tricks here and there. It's not like I love buying from Amazon. Of course, I would much rather buy from a local store or something like that. But the reality is sometimes these like Amazon glitches happen where you get absurd things for really cheap. And let's be honest, I don't know that Miles Davis's estate needs it. But the point is, several weeks, if not months ago at this point, this box set had dropped down to something like $39.99. Yes, $40. That's U.S. American dollars for this quadruple LP box set of Miles Davis stuff from 1954. So, if you're familiar with the Miles Davis Prestige catalog, there's a lot of stuff on here, I think, from, Bag's Groove with Milt Jackson and some of the other stuff that was going on during the time. But, a really great set here. A lot of these recordings live on some of the studio records, but some of them might not. But for $40 for a 4 LP set, I mean, that's absurd, right? So would I have bought this if it was $100, $80? no, probably not. But for $40, yeah, absolutely, I'm gonna get it. So, yeah, that's the first one. While we're on the sort of Miles Davis kick here, um, this was a original jazz classic. So OJC, as it currently sits, is a subsidiary, I guess, of Craft Recordings, but it is one of the Audiophile reissue series label. And so, or label series reissue. It's an Audiophile reissue series. And I have a ton of Miles Davis, and he's my favorite jazz artist, and I tried to get everything Miles Davis. But this, again, the OJCs will typically, I think, retail for around $40. Maybe $38, depending on where you're looking, but around $40 for OJCs. But I saw this again one day several weeks ago. I think it was $26. So I went ahead and picked it up. But it is, of course, Miles Davis, the musing of Miles. This is an interesting one historically. So I believe this was like the first official sort of full-length release that Miles did for Prestige Records. I believe this might have originally been a 10-inch record. I could be wrong there, but it's a little bit old school. Interestingly enough, though, you have Red Garland and Philly Joe Jones on this record, who would become a part of his first great quintet, and then Oscar Pettiford on bass. So this is certainly not the fusiony, weird, funky stuff that he was doing in the late 60s, early 70s. As we sit like firmly in the mid-50s here, kind of plays into some of that other Prestige stuff that was shown as well. But yeah, just very early, or pretty early Miles, but amazing nonetheless. On the topic of OJC, Original Jazz Classics, I was eyeing this one for a while until, again, it shot down so heavily in price that it was a great deal. And honestly, I got this because the lineup was just absurd. But it's Mal Waldron, Mal 2. Mal Waldron was a American jazz pianist who, kind of a sad story, in like 1962 or 1963 had like a complete, I guess they call it a breakdown, but it was like a mental and physical break due to a heroin overdose. And he like lost feeling in his hands, and like it took years and years and years and years of, I guess like physical therapy or whatever to get him back to playing shape to, finish out the rest of his life and career. But, obviously a lot of stories about some heroin overdoses in jazz world. But looking at this Mal Waldron sextet here, with Jackie McLean, who's one of my favorites sax players. You also have John Coltrane. Okay, great. Amazing. Idris Suleiman, Sahib Shahab, which he had there was a great Record Store Day Black Friday release last year for Sahib Shahab that was amazing. And Bill Hardman. So, yeah, an incredible talent. Mal Waldron stuff is great. One of my favorite records that he did is called The Quest, which is another OJC release if you're into it. But just an outstanding record. I think this came out maybe 57 or so. That sounds about right. Yeah, so originally 1957, and again, part of that Craft OJC series. Let's move into some Blue Note tone poets. So, I will say before I put this, I guess, back in the sleeve, with the Original Jazz Classic, this is like, reissue packaging 101 type stuff. What you're getting is a nice, audiophile release, obviously. The package on this are single sleeves, so you have no gatefold, but single sleeved, good, hard cardboard, great packaging, all good stuff, and obviously the audio quality is outstanding. I didn't mention it before, but why these jazz reissues are so popular is because these records are so difficult to find, and if you do find them, they're maybe beat up, or they're a gazillion dollars, or both. And so to get a chance to own these on vinyl and for it to sound great, that's why these are so great. That being said, as we jump into some of the tone poets, you'll see that some of these are gatefolds and all those different things. But one thing I wanted to kind of focus on, because I now have 3 of these and I'm loving them, was, this idea of buying reissues because there's no chance that you're ever going to get an original, right? Like, I think that's a lot of my rationale for buying certain reissues, right? Like, if I can find an original or at least an early pressing of something for not that expensive, I'll usually go for that. But if, you know, it's $100 or more, or God forbid $1,000, and I know there's no way, nah, man, give me the Audiophile reissue. I'm going to feel really good about that. And so these next three are actually kind of a series because they're being put out by Blue Note on the Tone Poet series, but they were originally released on a label called Transition. And the first one I'm going to show is Bird Blows on Beacon Hill. And this is Donald Byrd, one of my favorite trumpet players. And actually, while this is here, I'm going to show the other one too. The other Donald Byrd release that they've done so far that's also on Transition is Bird's Eye View. Art Blakey, Horace Silver's on here, Hank Mobley's on here, Dud Watkins, who I'll get to here in a second. But I'll show these two back to back. So, I mean, again, I love Donald Byrd, an amazing trumpet player. I think for me too, he was one of the players that actually seamlessly transitioned so well into the 70s and sort of well done. You know, early to mid 70s funky soul stuff and just seamlessly transitioned into it in a great way. So these records were released back in the 50s on Transition, which was a label that was started and run by Tom Wilson, who of course was a great producer and did all the things back in the day for a ton of different artists. But when they were originally released, apparently they were on styrene. Now, I don't really understand, or I'm not going to get into sort of the chemical makeup of records and vinyl and all that type of stuff, but apparently they were done on styrene, which means they didn't last, or they got beat up really well, or whatever it was. But essentially, what it sounds like is these types of records, to find them originally is almost impossible. You know, again, if you do find them, it's like, holy shit, he found one. But they're $1 million or something like that. I know specifically, as I'll get to this one, because this was the other one, was Dud Watkins, the bassist, or double bassist, Watkins at large, here with a great lineup. Hank Mobley, one of my favorite sax players, Donald Byrd on there as well, Kenny Burrell on guitar, Art Taylor on drums, Duke Jordan on piano. But, you know, this, I believe, an original on Discogs right now, there's one of them for sale and it's $2,000. I think the most recent one sold for $1,500. So it's like, you know, you're never going to get these. Now, these again are part of the Tone Poet. Blue Note, I guess, has the rights to the Transition label stuff. I got all three of these, those two Donald Byrds and this Dud Watkins at large, for $19. They retail for, I think, $38.99, so basically $40. So basically they were half off. Give me a sip. So they're half off. Again, I can invest in that, right? I cannot buy $40 records all the time, but I can buy a $20 record here, $16 record here, etc. While on the Donald Byrd train, this was a record. I'm sure that the exact history here. You know, Blue Note, they had a lot of these sessions, and a lot of the reissues, as it happens, is, you know, these were recordings that might have happened in the 50s or 60s, but then got shelved for years, and then were released with sort of like a different artwork. But this is Donald Byrd. I believe this is Kofi. I'm sure some people's going to say it's Kofi, but Kofi. You got Donald Byrd on here, as well as Bob Crenshaw on a lot of different tracks, Ron Carter, kind of a who's who all over the place. Originally, this was, I guess, originally released in 95, but I forget when these recordings were taking place. Actually, it'll say here. A batch of tunes cut in 69 and 70 were sort of held off. So again, you know, these were sessions that were recorded way back in the day, but then not released, and then released, I think, on CD or something in the mid-90s, and then now on vinyl as part of the Blue Note Tone Poet series. So, yeah, I mean, again, I think 18 or 19 bucks I paid for this, and it's just outstanding. I love me some Donald Byrd. If you're not into the Donald Byrd, get you into the Donald Byrd. We'll keep it moving right along here with some more Blue Note Tone Poet madness, and let's do it in some piano trio with Sonny Clark. Sonny Clark trio. So Sonny Clark on piano, Paul Chambers on bass, and Philly Joe Jones on drums. So I guess you kind of have a combination, that rhythm section of the first and second great quintet from Miles Davis's band. But yeah, Sonny Clark, just an amazing pianist. This originally came out in 1958 on Blue Note. Again, finding an original of this, good luck. But this is the standard sort of packaging that you're going to get with these Blue Note Tone Poets. Audiophile sound quality. These are all done by Kevin Gray. And then it's premium packaging too. So my favorite part about this is opening the gatefold and hearing the crackle. Let's see if we get it here. Oh, little one. A little crackle, but always the inside, the lining here, with some great photos, great pictures, all that type of stuff. So yeah, it's a different thing. I say this and me just kind of babbling now on this video that's 15 minutes long. I think so much of jazz, it sounds overly obvious, but it's true. Not all jazz is created equal, the same way that not all rock is, or all even punk is for that matter. The reality is that if you're interested in jazz, it's about finding what parts of it you do connect with and what parts you don't. There are certain people who absolutely hate the sound of a horn. If you hate the sound of a horn, maybe some trio stuff is good for you in the sense of like, yeah, give me some piano, give me some upright bass, and give me some drums. Some people love sax playing. Some people hate sax playing. Some people love the sound of a trombone. Whatever it is, figure out what that is. But when you see trio, at least in this way with Sonny Clark Trio, like there's not going to be horns on here. It's going to be piano, bass, and drums, and that's important. Let's keep moving here with the Tone Poets, and one of my favorite artists. I kind of always make the joke, but it's true, calling it Good Vibes Only. One of the best, vibraphone players in the world, and that of course is Bobby Hutcherson. This is another Tone Poet. With Medina or Medina. I guess it depends, right? Because you had the funky cold Medina. But I live in Ohio, and there's a city up towards Cleveland called Medina. The point is this record came out. This was one of those records, I guess, that was sort of held off. I forget when the original recordings took place here. But it wasn't released until 1980 as part of sort of that, I forget what it's called, but it's that special 80s sort of release of Blue Note Records. But again, some recordings that were held off for a number of years. But, as I was just sort of talking about with instrumentation, Bobby Hutcherson, he's a vibraphone player. So if you don't like the sound of those tink-tongs and bells and all those different things, then I don't know if Bobby's going to be for you. Or I don't know if Milt Jackson is going to be for you, right? Like, that's got to be part of it here. I do appreciate, this record is pretty awesome because you have Harold Land on here, who not only is playing tenor saxophone, but also playing the flute. So a great sort of element going on there. Stanley Cowell, the great Stanley Cowell on piano. Of course, he had a handful of releases on, Strata East. Reggie Johnson on bass, Joe Chambers on drums. So yeah, some more great stuff. Good Vibes Only, as I say, with Bobby Hutcherson going on. A very not talked about, but an incredible jazz pianist is Jack Wilson, and this is Easterly Winds. This originally was released in 1967. Again, a Tone Poet release. Let's get a little, see what we can do. Oh my God, they're not cracking for me, man. That's all right. Again, some great pictures on here. Hell of a lineup. The great Lee Morgan. I want to talk more about Lee Morgan, too. One of my favorite trumpet players. Garnet Brown on trombone. Again, a little bit of an interesting sound when you have trombone. Jack McLean on alto sax. Bob Cranshaw on bass. Billy Higgins on drums. And, of course, Jack Wilson on piano. Again, a lot of these... and I'm trying not to sound like a complete fucking idiot here, which is harder than you think. A lot of these I don't seek out, right? It's like, some of them I certainly do, right? There are certain artists like a Miles Davis or a John Coltrane or something like that where I do seek them out. A lot of these releases, though, I sit there and I go, okay, there are so many releases, so many, there's, especially with these jazz artists, they're putting out 6 albums a year sometimes, but they just pop on sale sometimes for half off or whatever it is. And this was another one of those records I think came down to $20 at some point. And I absolutely loved it. So, you know what? If I listen to them and I don't love them, you know what I do? I send them back. Because you can and you should. An outstanding saxophone player, one of my favorites, although sometimes can be a little bit aggressive on the squeak squonk, if you know what I mean. And this is part of the Blue Note Classic series. So now we're talking a little bit more budget audiophile. The packaging is not the best. It's a very standard jacket, but the sound quality is audiophile for sure. But this is Mode for Joe. This came out in 1966. Joe Henderson, again, an amazing sax player. You got Lee Morgan again here on trumpet, Curtis Fuller on trombone, Bobby Hutcherson on vibes, so again, look out for that. Cedar Walton on piano, Ron Carter on bass, and Joe Chambers on drums. I'm a huge fan of Joe Henderson. Again, maybe not for everybody. There are some times that Joe, especially later, well, not later in his career, especially into like the early to mid 70s, where he was squeak squonking pretty hard, spiritually, if you will. And that's not for everybody. I happen to dig it, but I understand those who might not. So, now these Blue Note Classic series records, they will typically, I think, retail for, I don't know, $27, $28. This was $13. I mean, like, I can't, amazing. Let's see. We got two more here, including a super special one that I'll go out on. Another incredible audiophile jazz reissue label that's also a subset, I guess, of Kraft as well, is the Jazz Dispensary Top Shelf series. Now, they have a little bit more of a sonic focus where they will focus on, usually some of the funkier elements, some more fusion type stuff. Maybe not all the stuff that you would completely expect, but this was a record that, again, I think I saw it come down to $16 or so, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to get that. But it is the amazing Patrice Russian with Prelusion. You also have Joe Henderson on here. Okay. So Patrice Russian, an incredible pianist, keyboard player. This was, I believe, her second record. After this goes... Or no, wait. Prelusion, this was her first record. After this... She goes a little bit more funky soul, which I'm totally into. But this is an outstanding jazz record. Gosh, maybe I should just read the fucking sticker. This is the debut from the legendary Patrice Russian. And again, featuring contributions from saxophones Joe Henderson. Back on vinyl for the very first time in decades. AAA lacquers cut from the original master tapes by Kevin Gray. Mastered and all that kind of stuff at RTI. Just amazing. This came out, I think, originally in 1971, maybe, and so it is on Prestige, or was originally, so it's on that kind of classic green Prestige label that was popular, I guess, or part of their labeling series in the 70s. So yeah, another label to check out if you don't know the Jazz Dispensary label. And last, and certainly not least, this is kind of a ball, like out of left field sort of pick, because it doesn't fall into the whole jazz reissue thing, but I wanted to talk about it. I'm sure I'll talk about it again. This is a brand new record for a Norwegian keyboardist, synth player, piano player, composer, etc., named Frod Anderson out in Norway, and this is his new record called Dark City. Very cool album cover here. Heck yeah. Into that. A concept-ish record that is focused on, actually inspired by a series of paintings by Morton A. Fagerl. All that kind of stuff. Super cool record. If you're into jazz fusion but want something a little bit newer, a little bit cooler, all that type of stuff, check this out. This was released on his own label, but you can get it from lasercd.com on vinyl, and I think for right now it's a vinyl only release. But in terms of records of the year, this is top 5, top 10 material. Again, the artist's name is Frod Anderson. This is Dark City. I want to give a shout out, actually, on this record to Bill over at the Vinyl Verse. He showed this on Instagram several weeks ago and was raving about it. So I was like, you know what? I trust that motherfucker with anything proggy or jazzy. So yeah, there you go. Okay, that's a lot of nonsense. I appreciate you sticking around thus far. And yeah, I guess I got to put all these fucking records away and put the sleeves back on them. That's what we do. Thanks for watching, everybody. Let me know what you think of jazz. Let me know what you think of me. Let me know what you think of anything. I don't care. I just appreciate you watching. And yeah, have a good rest of the week, and we'll see you soon. Cheers, y'all. Bye.